Hello, traders. It's 8:02 a.m. Chicago time, 9:02 Eastern on Wednesday, the 10th of October, 2018. Times are flying. We're a third of the way through the month. Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Risk sentiment this morning is risk off again, pretty much across the board. The U.S. bonds are down 21 ticks, 0.5%, a fair amount for the U.S. bond there. The 10-year note is down 18 ticks, 17.5 ticks or so. Japanese yen is off. The only two products that are green on my screen are the euro, which is up 50 pips, and the cable, which is up 17 pips. Lots of nervous sentiment in the market, and it just carries forward. Lots and lots of news chatter, everything from trade to comments from the White House on trade in China to crude oil to Brexit to you name it. It's a mishmash. It's going to continue to be so, probably, especially from the U.S. into the November 6th election. So that's where we are. We got PPI this morning in the U.S., but we also got a lot of numbers out of Europe, especially the U.K. saw trade balance, industrial production, manufacturing production, construction output, and GDP. PPI came in line. We have wholesale inventories at 10. We have wholesale trade sales at 10 as well. And we had some Fed speakers last night, my time. ECB speaker Mersch this morning. And BOE speaker Haldane already done. And then the only one left that I see, well, a couple left. Fed speaker Evans at 12:15 Eastern. And Fed Speaker Bostic at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's how things are shaping up. So let's take a look at what we expected yesterday. Now, those of you who attended the Trader Bite yesterday saw that I had spoken about the strong potential for a reversal to end the one-time framing down. I outlined the one-time framing with lower highs, as you saw here, and my primary scenario was looking for it to base around 28.75, 28.78, and rotate back up, pause at 2900, and potentially push to 2906, 2907. That was the key prediction from yesterday. The secondary was to test the 28.94 high and then to break that again, to end the one-time framing down, but then to show weakness into the afternoon. Many of you said that it's not likely, but I trade my plan, and here's what happened. So again, looking for open auction, pull back down, then impulse up into 2900, bounce through 2900, and then continue with another impulse to 290607. Here's what we got. Open auction, swing up, swing down, very clean. Extend the auction up with an impulse at 6.5. Cancel the impulse, hold mid, extend the opening swing lower so it doesn't look so hot anymore for scenario one, and then boom, we get a 13-point rotation up, pull back to the OS high, and then continuation to 2900. And then here, I expected it to bounce, so it was behaving as expected. Was looking for another area to get long for a continuation into 290607, and it just could not hold that. It extended the range up pulled back to mid, small bounce, and then it just balanced. The move up, you'll notice as the market moves up strong here, we don't get a lot of good participation on the delta. Yes, it's positive. It goes from negative to positive, just like price does. But overall, just unimpressive on the long side, especially since it rotated about 15 points higher with the delta maximum at 11,000 contracts. Just buyers, yes, it did break the one-time framing down, so the primary scenario was on point to 2,900, the century figure, but then it just easily took back. The sellers took back territory. So as we move forward, we see that it tried and tried and tried, and it really tried right there with another run at the high from lower prices. So we see the market pulling back, the auction pulling back to lower prices to entice some buying, and it did bring in buyers. We ended up pushing higher on an okay delta, not so great, and we went to 28.99, and that's all she wrote. Okay, from there it just couldn't hang on to prices, and it was very quick to move back to the open, and the delta to move back to zero. So not a very good job by buyers holding on to that territory and the reversal. We did get the reversal, but I got to tell you, the action was not encouraging on the continuation to 2906.07. 2906 is the unemployment scene of the crime. It's where the auction rotated down from there on Friday. So that's what we've got. Okay, we struggled with 2,900. We struggled with 28.94, and we ended up with a completely balanced profile. We did not go neutral, although through some of the session it looked like it wanted to go neutral. You could see that some of the rotations were pinging that 5.5 to 7 point up, 5 to 8 points down, up, down, up, down. It was quite even though buyers did put a dent. And then this morning, we're trading on the edge of yesterday's low, which isn't, again, boding well for buyers. Just overall, we finished with a valid value area and a completely balanced profile. Okay, so pay attention to the value area. This, as far as what happened since on the overnight. Overnight, we had a choppy reopen into the Asian session. We ran up a little bit into the European session, and again, the Europeans come in and they just poop on the party, and we sell off. We started to sell off pretty strong at 624 or so my time, and we pushed that low. The low before this was 81.75, and we pushed it 6 points down and through yesterday's low of 28.79, and have put in a high volume node down here. Here's what it looked like on the order flow and the heat map. Here, let's scroll back and look at the day big picture. I like to do this. Just look at the big picture. The darker areas or the brighter areas are areas where there was a lot of supply on the bid or the offer. The dots are actual trades. The green and the green and the red line are the best bid offer. But you can see that it just formed this triangle that it ended up breaking to the downside, almost perfectly formed triangle with this line here. And it just ended up breaking that to the downside, and it's struggling below. Pretty bearish look so far. So that's how things are shaping up. It's not it's kind of interesting Of course, size starts coming into the ES once the treasuries open at 7:20 my time, 8:20 Eastern, and it's been pushing back and forth. But I got to tell you, it doesn't look so good in terms of buyers coming back in and holding this. Not that I care if buyers come in. In fact, the sell side is more favorable to me, because once we get into a buying spree and start pushing highs, our volatility drops, our ranges drop, our volume drops, and it's not as tradable, in my opinion. But we have been, just like I repeated again and again yesterday, we've been really chiseling out a bottom. We've been pushing lower and squeezing lower and finding buyers for a short spree. Yesterday did the same thing into the open. We just moved down and then we buy up. We've on the day session didn't do it yesterday. By the way, the delta on the close yesterday was just unimpressive. But in prior days, as I showed yesterday, you might want to watch yesterday's video. As we push lower, we end up pushing higher on very large lot delta into the close, and to me, that is characteristic of behavior of a support finding behavior, a market that's seeking out support for the next push up, and that's where a lot of the expectation yesterday for a reversal comes from. So that's how things look on the overnight. The big picture, there it is. We have the pivot day, the peak day at 44.75, and then we drop the following day. I believe this was last Thursday. We drop on Friday on the non-farm payroll. We drop on Monday, and then yesterday we put in a higher high, creating that reversal, breaking the trend line. This morning we are down here. Not very promising. So we're not generating that rotation up that buyers would want to see. We saw something similar back here. Back here we get this selling, we get this break. So we break the last high, so that ends the one-time framing down, and then we open below and end up pushing through a bullish engulfing day on the pivot day, which was yesterday for us. In the current spree, we put in a very strong buying day, and then we start one-time framing up until this day. So that's how things are setting up in the bigger picture. Yesterday was quite balanced and didn't really give us a strong indication. You can see that yesterday had a big wick up, a wick down. The market really fought hard on both sides. Both buyers and sellers are pretty active. Volume came off yesterday. The prior day was 1.8. 1.49, and then we had 1.89, 1.49, 1.47 yesterday. Volume is kind of decreasing slowly in the RTH session as we move forward. As far as what we were expecting for today, all of that kind of went out the window with this drop, as I showed right here. This drop taking place changes things slightly. We were well inside of the value area and range right before this, and now we're just outside. It changes the landscape or the context or narrative a little bit. We're on the edge of yesterday's low, though. So my expectations this morning shift enough that it's pretty much a coin toss. The primary scenario is likely to be an open auction just inside of the range. I'm looking for it to drift up into 28.86. Give us an impulse down. I'm expecting the trade to be slower. I'm looking for the overnight low to be taken out. I'm looking for us to shift all the way down into that 28.66 area. but I expect it to be contested. I expect this move down to be contested as prices go down. So I'm looking for one of these types of profiles where it's just a lot of volume going across a lot of prices to pinch through, push into 28.63, and come back up into the close. So we're resuming what we had been doing here with today's primary scenario. However, equally as important and equally as probabilistic, an open auction that drifts down into the high volume node from yesterday at about 28.72, impulse back up, move into the range, test this 28.86. There's a fair amount of resistance up here, in my opinion, and then it'll attempt to hold this range, hold the value high for a close in range. Okay. The third scenario, the tertiary scenario, is likely to be an open, test up, drive down. Fourth, open, test down, drive up, and so on and so forth. But I'm really looking to fade. I'm going to tell you that I'm looking to fade any move into yesterday's range, into the point of control 28.86, the stock zone at 28.87. I'm looking to fade that on the first test, meaning sell it on the way up. It doesn't mean that I'm averaging down. It's a planned trade. I'm looking to fade that 28.87 on the first try and look for a rotation back out of the range and down into the 28.72 area. So I'm looking for about somewhere between 6 and 9 points there, depending, as it pushes up. Now, if it starts to push down, there's really not much to play with. If it starts to push down right off the open, I'm not able to jump on. I don't trade breakouts. I don't sell the low. I know a lot of people do, and they do fine, I guess. But I don't trade that way. I'm looking for an advantage in price before I interact with the market. So if it starts to drift down, there's nothing for me to do other than to wait to see if it responds at the high volume node or the next stock zone for me to act. So it's sitting on my hands probably for the first hour if it starts to move lower. The better opportunity for me is for it to push higher and then rotate off of that. There's pretty good resistance up here from yesterday. We've got the value area. We have a lot of structure and price action in this area to lean against on the short side, but not so much on the long side in this current context. If we had finished in value, it would have given us the point of control 28.8687 plus the value low to lean against at 28.84. But we're not there, are we? So we are right on the edge of yesterday's range to the downside after a reversal day. Generally, we get a push down when that happens. I'm not sure if I'm speaking too fast or maybe I'm using terms or whatever. I do get a lot of emails asking about specifics, but it's best to ask in the chat thing in front of you as I'm talking, and I'll try to answer it as soon as I end the broadcast. If not, you can reach me at futurestrader71.com/contact or convergenttrading.com/contact. Good luck, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Take care.